and he can't lose 3 million jobs in a very short period of time, and that's going to be magnified many times over. And it's going to break down the Chinese system of trade. In the meantime, the United States, which has never collected 10 cents from China, will, in a fairly short period of time, be over $100 billion in tariffs. So I think they want to make a deal very badly.
You've recently been saying that China wants a deal, but you're not necessarily ready for a deal, and you like the tariff revenue that is coming in. Are you now ready to make a deal?
Only if it's a fair deal and a good deal for the United States. Otherwise, I will not make a deal. We have billions and billions coming in, and I think we're going to get there. It's not a question of behavior. I think they want to make a deal, and I think they should make a deal, and I think if they don't make a deal, it's very bad for China. And I very much appreciate the fact that they came out last night, very late last night, and they said, you know, they want to make a deal. They want it to be under calm circumstances. It was a little different kind of a statement. I thought it was a beautiful statement.
Except a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson said that he was not aware of the phone calls Trump mentioned. You could hear it, Joe, when he was like, China called, and his eyes were, I mean, I guess the president doesn't understand that things can be verified.
Well, yeah, that actually people will actually ask
maybe someone in the White
foreign
House
ministry
could confirm this call took
whether
place.
they actually called or not. And of course, one other thing, and it becomes laborious, but we just have to keep saying it. He's talking about the billions and billions of dollars that tariffs are going to take from China. It comes from you, the American taxpayer. The Chinese do not pay the tariffs. You pay the tariffs when you go shopping, when you go grocery shopping, when you go to Walmart, when you go to Target, when you go to the mall, you are paying the tariffs, the American consumer. That's what, again, I'm not exactly sure who he thinks he's fooling. I don't think his supporters are stupid. I guess he thinks they're stupid, which is sort of insulting. But the tariffs aren't paid by China. The tariffs are paid by the American consumer. But John Heilemann, let's take a step back really quickly. I want you to give us the overview before we go to Richard Haass and get the specifics on the foreign policy. His performance this weekend was just extraordinarily unmoored, worse than ever. I think everybody agrees Donald Trump is getting worse. He began the weekend on Friday by ordering U.S. companies to get out of China, ordering them, and then on Saturday saying that he had the legal authority to do it. And in fact, citing a federal statute. Bizarre statements through the weekend, a bizarre defense of Vladimir Putin, just a bizarre obsession. It's really sad and emasculating that Donald Trump is so obsessed with Barack Obama. It makes him look so small. But that obsession continued as he attacked a former president. Right. While defending an ex-KGB agent. And then, from all reports, when he was inside private meetings, just completely obsessed with getting Vladimir Putin in the room with them. What are our allies to think of it, and how in the hell can Republicans watch him on the world stage promoting Doral, a property that is collapsing, and do little more than write op-eds saying, you know, Donald Trump was right about purchasing Greenland, without mentioning, of course, that he canceled a meeting with Greenland, with Denmark, because they wouldn't sell him Greenland.
Yeah, so the Tom Cotton thing that you're referring to is just so sad to watch a United States senator.
It is. It's pathetic.
Sucking up to the president in such a ridiculous way when it's been clear that Greenland is not for sale. So all arguments about its merits or demerits are totally irrelevant.
And again, John, the world is on fire when he's over there, G7, and you can look at what's happening with Russia, what's happening with China, what's happening with our closest allies. And your answer is to go back to last week and go, well, you know, it's a really good idea to purchase Greenland. And other Trump apologists doing the same. How do they ignore the fire in front of them?
I believe the world you're looking for is not just apologist, Joe. The words are sycophant and toady. But look, I think that the thing to focus on, because Trump's performance was quintessentially Trump, and the Republican reaction to it was quintessentially Republican in the sense that they ignore what he's doing, they suck up to him, they've given up any pretense of having a position that's not completely in his pocket. I think the relevant thing to look at, and Richard, I think, will talk about this, I'm sure, more than I will, but like, to me, the main thing that you looked at over the course of the weekend, all the things that you just laid out, the most, the image that summed up the whole thing was the notion, to your image of the world on fire. The Amazon is on fire, and the most urgent meeting of the weekend, in some respects, was the meeting on climate change, where the entire industrialized world, the rest of the world, it recognizes now in a way it has never before the threat that climate change poses. It's vividly on display as we watch the Amazon, burning in a way that is going to potentially create ecological havoc that's going to take hundreds of years to correct if it ever gets corrected. And in the session on climate change at the G7, the president did not show up. There was an empty chair. And the empty chair symbolizes, I think, where we are now. We're fully there, where the President of the United States has abdicated.
Well, John, and his excuse was a lie. His excuse for not being there was even proven to be a lie. Yes. Everything he did all weekend, again, was an alternative reality.
For sure. So he says he was off doing bilateral meetings with I believe with India and maybe Germany, and of course those leaders were actually in the room. So yes, he lied again. But I think the bigger story is this story of abdication. We've talked about how Donald Trump was ceding American leadership on the world stage over the course of the last 2.5 years. We now have the full abdication of leadership, and the heads of the other G7 nations, which in every other big international meeting over the course of the last 2.5 years, have tried in one way or the other to wheedle Trump, to cajole Trump, to push Trump, to offer blandishments to Trump. They've now given up. All they're doing now is, how do we keep the arsonist from burning down the house? How do we keep him from doing damage, and then go about our business, because America is no longer the leader of the free world? And I think that's what you saw over the course of the weekend in the long arc of history. That's the moment. That's what we will remember this summit for.
And of course, it's just a realization, Richard Haass, of what Angela Merkel told Germans a few years ago when she said, "We can no longer rely on the United States of America."
The measure, it's interesting, the measure of a G7 now is not what you accomplish, it's what you avoid. And in this case, it was avoiding a major blow-up with the United States. From the get-go, Emmanuel Macron decided the last thing you needed was a communique, because it would be impossible to get one that the United States could sign on to that would be substantive. So he was very smart. He just basically cut his losses. I think John's point is right. Abdication's a word I've used. Essentially, the United States has gone from being the principal architect and general contractor of world order to now becoming the principal disruptor. The problem for the Europeans and the Japanese and others is they simply lack the capacity to substitute for us. So they kind of do what little they can. $20 million for Amazon fires, which is a literal drop in the bucket. But without the United States in the driver's seat, we don't make a lot of progress. To the contrary, the gap between the challenges and the international responses is growing. And that's the historical judgment about the G7, which looks like an awfully tired gathering. I think the two immediate, though, things I would highlight are the president walked back two issues. He walked back the trade war for the moment with China, and he walked back the threat of actual war with Iran. And in both of those, I think there was a change from where he showed up in France and where he ended.
Well, Richard, do you agree that the president, after having a tantrum publicly on Friday on Twitter, and then again on Saturday, do you think the president realized that he had boxed himself into a corner, that she, really, again, he's president for life, Donald Trump's political problems are not Xi's political problems, and that he figured out that China can wait him out, and that Donald Trump is going to cave and he's going to crumble? Do we not find ourselves in a place now where Trump has blinked, And now he's going to have to crawl back to the table and get the best deal that he can under